Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Must be tough dealing with the mentally ill on a permanent basis. The fact that she actually acted drunk shows the fact that she needs some real parenting and not whatever the hell is going on. We'll tell you more right after a short pause. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Little B thinks I'm her personal chef. So this is a story about my girlfriend's little sister. This isn't the only story, as things like this happen on the regular. Girlfriend equals GF, sister equals Sarah, mother equals M, let's call her Karen. All the things in brackets aren't important, but they give some more information. First of all, my girlfriend hates her family, and I can totally understand it because her family is honestly one of the worst. Her dad isn't at home very often, and her mother supports her little sister in everything, and her little sister is an entitled B. On our anniversary, we spend the evening together at my home, but Karen dropped Sarah off because she hadn't had time for Sarah. By the way, she's 13 and old enough to be home alone for one evening. This was all right for me because Karen told me she had an important family meeting as her mother had died recently. I was already PO'd because of my neighbors, entitled people too, and then this little brat turns up. She asked me if she could watch TV, and I said yes, turned the TV on, went back into the kitchen. As I was cooking for me and my girlfriend came into the kitchen too and watched me cooking. Honestly, that's creepy AF. She's just staring at me. Suddenly, Sarah comes in and sits on a working surface. Of course, she did not turn off the TV, but luckily my girlfriend goes and turns it off. I was cutting onions with my knife. I'm very proud of this knife, by the way. I made 4 knives with just a little help from a blacksmith out of Damascus and walnut. These knives have a total value of around 3,000 euros if you want to buy them. End of being super proud of my knives. S asked me if she can hold the knives. I think she realized that those knives are special by the way I store them, in a walnut case clad with black velvet. I say no and explain to her why, but I try to make a compromise and show her the knives, but she doesn't want to. Not my problem. At this point, I was very busy because I was cooking a quite complicated meal. Baked potatoes with herbs, self-made vegetarian steak out of Seaton, onions and cider, and rabbit ragu and red wine for S. I had still some rabbit in my fridge, and neither me nor my girlfriend eat meat, so I was happy that I could use the rabbit and not throw it away. Fast forward to the meal. Me and my girlfriend are enjoying our meal and the evening, even though Sarah is with us, but she constantly talks about how disgusting the meal is. I offer her a portion of our meal, but she says she wants meat and not this weird crap. And then she stands up, takes her phone, and calls her mother she should pick her up. No crap, her mom drove 120 kilometers, around 80 miles, to pick her spoiled piece of crap up. When Karen turns up, she wanted to know what I was serving and then gets furious because there are 150 milliliter red wine in the ragu. By the way, the ragu was in a pot for 3 hours at 80 degrees Celsius. There can't be the slightest bit of alcohol in there. Sarah realizes what it's about and acts drunk. Karen, still shouting at me how I poisoned her loved daughter and how I should be locked up. Suddenly, Sarah runs in the kitchen and just takes one of my knives. But the case with the other knives fell out of the shelf and broke. At this moment, I was pissed as hell. I shouted that Karen should take her brat and GTFO. I went into the kitchen, screaming at Sarah to place the knife on the desk and go. She tries to stab me, but I disarm her as I do Krav Maga, and this is something I'm totally capable of. Karen takes Sarah and storms out. Yesterday, I got a letter from her lawyer reading she wants to sue me. Holy F, how can somebody be this dumb? What do some people think? Am I her personal chef to make everything she wants? And our next story. Sold land around my house to a developer years ago. HOA formed and being forced to join it and liens on my property. So my parents owned about 30 acres of land in the middle of nowhere, Nebraska, on the outskirts of town. My parents built their house in the late 80s, and that's where I've lived my whole life. My parents passed away, and I inherited the property, and it's all my land, or was my land. Back in 2005, this developer bought up a bunch of neighboring land and wanted to buy my land. I told him I was willing to sell 10 acres furthest from the house, the adjoining section to his neighborhood. He asked for 20 acres, and I told him that the second 10 acres would be 3 times the price, and he agreed, and we signed the paperwork, and he bought the land, and I was paid for it. End of story. Or so I thought. The land sat empty for over a decade since it took a while for him to sell the plots of land he made to home buyers and his company build houses. From about 2005 to 2012, the land sat empty, and I didn't mind. I still mowed the grass and whatnot to keep it tidy, but never tried to take the land over or anything. By fall of last year, he'd finished the entire area, and there's about 200 homes in that neighborhood. Because of the neighborhood, my 10 acres is now worth about 10 to 20 times what it was originally worth, and the HOA knows that. Since the September of 2017, I've had a bunch of angry letters and citations left on my property and in my mailbox. Some of them include having a barn larger than 7 by 7 feet. I have a 20 by 40 barn. Having abandoned vehicles on my property. It's a project car shell that I'm working on. I have the actual chassis in the barn, but it needs quite a bit of work. I bought an old rusted body and it sits outside and will continue to do so until I can deal with it. Having a non-conforming mailbox, still no idea WTF this is. Having the improper roof tiles. Again, no idea. I ignored them and told the HOA members that I'm not part of their neighborhood and therefore have no reason to follow their bullcrap rules. The HOA says since my property values have gone up, I owe back dues from the date I sold my land before there was even a single house built and have to correct everything on the list. The back dues are currently $10,200, but they state that if I don't pay by December 31st, 2017, I will be charged interest that is accrued. Again, no idea where they're getting the interest from, but I do believe their HOA fees are around $750 a year. It'll cost me about $15,000 to $20,000 to fix my house. I think it's absolute bullcrap that they can even make me try to do so. I went through all the documents I signed, and not a single document from the developer makes any mention of an HOA or my association with it. I have no idea why the HOA is coming after me. I live almost a half a mile away from the nearest house that belongs to the neighborhood. The entire neighborhood has its own little custom street signs and lamps. I don't have any of that. So how can they say I'm part of the HOA? They said to either pay up or they'll put a lien on my property and take it over. From what I understand, if I pay the $10,000, doesn't that mean I'm admitting to guilt and being forced into the HOA? Update. So just had an hour-long discussion with the lawyer, and he went through all the documents. He asked if I was sure that that was every document, and I told him it was, and it was. When I sold all the documents, I put them all in the same folder along with my taxes. He says that there's no chance I'm in the HOA since I didn't sign anything. He let me know that he'd be glad to send them a cease and desist letter to the HOA. I brought up adverse possession, and he suggested I don't pursue it since I want them to leave me alone rather than instigating anything bigger. So for now, he said do not pay anyone or sign anything. He'll mail out the C&D letter today, and he says if the HOA tries contacting me, I should just tell them to contact him instead. So I think I'm in the clear for now. So I met with a real estate attorney and did the title search, and I'm in the process of trying to find the old developer's master plans. So far, here's what's been dug up. I sold my land to developer A. He owned the land for about 2 years, then filed bankruptcy and lost the land to the bank. That's when the maintenance of the land went to crap, and I was mowing it and taking care of it because the bank didn't care. Bank sold it to developer B, and that's the person that built the current neighborhood. We got in touch with developer B, and he said he was no longer part of the neighborhood, and in fact, the HOA is in charge of the entire area. His company just owned the lots, and they sold and built them for the families, and they have zero say anymore. I asked him about the master plans and if he thought he owned my remaining 10 acres, and he said absolutely not. The entire neighborhood sits on old land, and the 20 acres that were purchased from in, so he was helpful, and it was clear he had no wrongdoing. I spoke to the lawyer to see if we could file an adverse possession on the land I maintained, but he said it'd be a waste of time and money, but I was just going to do it despite the HOA. The title search and everything came up clean. It showed my parents as the previous owners and then me. So no way could they have owned my land. The records go way back, and there's a clear chain of ownership, as my lawyer put it, and it's incontestable. We sent the HOA a cease and desist letter as well to stop contacting me unless they have actual signed documents that show I was part of a HOA. They never got back to me. I was out of town and came back last night to my mailbox missing. It was cut clear off the post with a chainsaw. Wooden post with a metal mailbox on top. I told my lawyer this, and he says that's a big deal, and the USPS would send the person to jail. I repurchased an identical mailbox and set up cameras all over the property. If they try it again, I'll have them on tape. But the biggest thing we uncovered was that we found out what they are planning. It turns out that the HOA wants to put in another community playground and pool clubhouse, and they need land. They can't expand in any other direction since they're almost on the end of a highway on one side and the other sides are zoned for agriculture. So they decided they'd try to take over my land. They have yet to file a lien on my property, so I'm guessing they were trying to force me into the HOA to make me sell them my land below market value. Either way, they showed their hand, and now I'm on alert. We filed a complaint with the police regarding the stolen mailbox, and we have a paper trail for that now. It's just a waiting game to see what they'll do next. Should I send them a letter saying I know their plan and there's no way they can get my land? They have their monthly meeting every second Tuesday of the month, so it's in a few days, and I'm sure I'll be the topic of discussion. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.